Welcome everybody to the show. It's John Bergsma here with Dane Stanaway out of the historic town of Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and we're fishing the southern part of the St. Mary's River here in early September, and this bite's been going on here since the 4th of July. And what we're doing is we're spinner fishing rock piles and catching really nice, probably the nicest colored walleyes you'll ever see in the world. Nice start to the day. Beautiful walleye.
A little smaller than what we're used to down here, but
plenty legal keeper. Absolutely. If you were out trying to get a few eaters. We're gonna pull a spread. We've got 6 offshore boards, we've got our trolling lines, and we've got crawler harnesses. And what we're doing is we're just pulling these from deep water into these shallow gravel bars. And see, that's just a pearl. That's gonna imitate, you know, the bait fish that are here. That's just a split gold and silver. 3-hook harness with a treble trailer at the end to be sure we catch these fish. And again, this is just first fish of the day, but we'll talk more about what we're doing here as we catch more. Stay tuned. When you're pile fishing, Dane, this is just normal, isn't it? Yep. You get a chance at these fish, and then you know, you make a couple, 2-3 passes on them, you're pretty much gonna blow them, and this is a really, really nice fish. Yeah, it's pulling really hard. Playing catch and release today because, to be honest with you, especially big fish, you gotta be careful that you don't abuse a circumstance. Now, it looks like we've hooked a bonus smallmouth here. We're targeting walleye, but you know what, we're fishermen, so we really don't care. Whoa, and that is something that that is also really, really normal up here, isn't it? Yeah. Beautiful smallmouth bass. Sault Ste. Marie and the St. Mary's River has got 2 really prevalent species year-round. Smallmouth bass, walleye, and then of course they have seasonal migrations of salmon that come in and are really become great. And well, let's let this girl go here, but the St. Mary's is just filled with really good, that's just an average size smallmouth. Well, we keep bouncing around to these spots, and sometimes when you're out here doing this type of fishing, Dane's got about 15 of these little piles, and we got 2 fish, 1 on each spot, and then we had a couple of off piles where we couldn't catch nothing. Now Dane's run into a good one. We just had said there was a suspended fish on the graph, and he goes, well, it's in the right zone, and here you go. It's important to keep pressure, have the guy doing this, just keep moving and keep that pressure on the line. I think this is gonna be a really good fish, Dano. Here he is. This is what the St. Mary's River will give you if you're patient. It's a beautiful fish. I see him. Boy, he got great clarity right here. Oh, yeah. Look at the colors on that walleye. Gorgeous. These are gold. I love these, Dane, don't you?
Just beautiful fish.
They are the most beautiful fish around, and man, oh man, when you start getting into them, and this is a typical fish, yeah. Right, Dane? This is what we're out here after. You catch a lot of this size of fish. I know we started out the day with a smaller one and then a smallmouth bass, but this is really the type of fish that you can catch on these piles pretty consistently. Now we're just afternoon, and Dane's brought us to some deeper rock piles and with like 18 or 19 feet of coverage on them, so that's really what we're looking for the afternoon bite.
The Fisherman's Digest is brought to you by Crestliner, forged with strength, defined by durability. Strike King Lures, tie one on. Mercury Marine, go boldly.
Two snagged rods on this side and a big fish on this side. That is the game you play when you come and work these piles. But yes, this is going to be worth it. Although we're snagged up royally. Oh. Okay, we'll just take this fish. Look at that beautiful fish right there. You can hear, oh my gosh, Dane, deal with the rods. You hear rods in the background. Those are snagged up rods. But this is exactly what you deal with when you fish piles. But this is also the result of fishing piles. And again, I mean, this bite is all over the southern part of the St. Mary's River, you know, in August, certainly by the 4th of July, all the way through September. And then those fish will move up to Muskong Bay and they'll really work the weeds. The perch will come in tight to Muskong and these big walleyes will be right behind them. So let me show you how I'm hooking this setup up that we're fishing with today. We'll take this wad. It's really important that you get this setup right. You want your baits clean on here, and there's a proper way to hook night crawlers on. That sounds nuts, but there really is. And that is right through the tip on the first one. Then I go right through the barrel on the second one, which is that discoloration. And then I stretch the crawler out a little bit, but you don't want to go too far back because you don't want a loop. You want a little loop in your line there. You'd rather have a loop in your line than a loop in the crawler. That's one of the probably the single biggest things that people, the mistakes they'll make when they're setting crawlers is because that crawler will stretch out in the water once you set him in there. He'll relax once there's a pull on him. And then, of course, we're using just a line counter reel so that we can mimic. And line counters are a super important part of this presentation that Dane's showing us here today because these rock piles, they'll come up, they'll drop off. And what happens is you'll get those baits based on your speed and your line out. You'll get those baits that are just ticking across. Now we're using of course our offshore inlines. The far one is out 25, the next one's out 30, this one's out 35. And I'm gonna feed this one out really slow with my thumb because we're in the spot right now. And if I just let it roar back, these are really good chunk rocks down there. Those rocks will just grab my spinner and just eat it. And so a really cool trick is to go ahead and engage the reel and back your drag off until the pull, hear it now, a really slow click. That's a great trick to letting out a bait really super slow, keeping tension on keeping the spinner thumping, keeping tension on the board. And what happens is a lot of times you can get hits while you're setting it out super slow like that. And what'll happen is it'll just it'll increase that. So by engaging the reel and backing your drag off in these structure situations, you can super slow set that board out back into place. That's just a little tip because otherwise you got to stand there and thumb it. You don't have to do that. All day long, just pulling onto these rock piles and then back off of them. And it's been the key, and Dane's been working this for years. And it's just a presentation where these fish will hold in the deep water. They'll come up. Now we don't know for sure how far these fish are coming up. It's really tough to say. Oh my goodness, this is a really good fish. Look at this sucker. Oh, never lunge, never lunge. Look at this one. This is what we come to Sault Ste. Marie for. Wow, feisty too, boy. This fish is not done by any means. But we're gonna show you this fish. We wanna release these fish. We don't wanna keep them. But man, now that right there is a Sault Ste. Marie walleye. I mean, this is probably a 6.5 pound fish. Just slugged this in open water, but we were close. We weren't on the rock pile, but that's just a tip for you is, you know, take those passes further off the rocks. These fish will hold. They'll suspend in deeper water at that same depth that they are feeding on top. This fish couldn't have been more than 15, 16 foot down, and we were over 35 foot of water. So just keep that going. Again, we don't want to keep her out too long, so we're gonna let her go.
Fish.
It's just a normal fish, Sault Ste. Marie, south of Muskong. Rock pile fishing, there's nothing better. Nothing better than that right there.